I'd like to welcome each and every individual to Voices of Integrity podcast for Top Gun Sales Bootcamp training. It's important to have our head in the game in sales. And so Kenny, Luke, and Nora, they're just used to, what's called a mark bomb. And so we had one yesterday, right, for this one or not?
I
Not
don't
really.
remember.
Not really. Okay. That probably was definitely, we had one in, Mark Borisma for Dummies. Like that one, I don't think anybody will ever forget. I think it's number 6 on the list. And holy cow, was that one a mark bomb? So, you know, do you guys know about the Nobel Peace Prize?
No.
So then Mr. Nobel, he's the one that created it. And so he's the one who invented dynamite. So he invented dynamite, became this multimillionaire, billionaire. And dynamite's obviously used, you know, in good things and bad things, but he became known as the war machine. And he said, I don't want to have a legacy of a war machine. So I'm going to go ahead and create a Nobel Peace Prize. So he has, has this for, forever. And so, dynamite, if you're trying to go ahead and open up something like a place to move rocks, like a mountain or something like that. And if you don't go ahead and one stick of dynamite doesn't work, what do you do?
Use two.
2 sticks of dynamite. Yeah. You got to use the right dynamite you know, on a situation or people. And so, with 7 children, there's some of the children that I just looked at them. I just kind of looked at them like really, and all of a sudden their hearts were soft and they got moved and they got convicted or whatever. But that's not most of them. Most of them, it's just brute force. It's just you got to go ahead and use brute force, and often it's going to be surprisingly it's the amiables. They're the most stubborn of the 4 personalities. They're the most self-righteous of the 4 personalities. If they got some analytic in them, they got the stubborn ego, and they got lots of data to back up their stuff. It can be any one of the 4 personalities. So let's dive in. I've got a whole stuff. I don't know if you guys got a bunch of stuff, but we'll start off. Nora, how about you?
I had 30% yesterday.
Nice, nice. Did you time block scheduling time for your graphs and charts?
I did not.
Okay, so if you could do that, and if you need my help on it, if you have it in a spreadsheet for past stuff, and that's what we were talking about. So if you go ahead and store data daily, then you can look at the data daily. So Nora could look at she could slice the data in multiple, and Kenny knows how to do pivot tables. And so you can slice it. Shuaib can do it. So she could look at every Monday and she could say, our Monday's high or low, or Tuesday's high or low. So she could look for patterns of strengths in her business and patterns of weaknesses in her business. But if you don't store it daily, if you don't store the data daily, you can't do that. If you store the data weekly, you can't break it down into daily data. And so you've got to store the data and how you want to use the data. If you don't, you won't be able to do it. If you store the data monthly, you can't look at weekly. And so people are patternistic. So they fall into routines. They do routines. And so if you have data, you can see those routines. And a lot of times we fall into routines and we don't even know it. So there was a client, Action Vision client of ours years ago, and he said, Mark, November, December, January, or no, October, November, December, last quarter of the year is typically our slowest quarter. Is there any way that we can do to stop that, to prevent that? I said, absolutely. And he was talking in May or June. So he gave us some runway. And I said, this is what you do if you want the last quarter. So the whole industry goes down by 40 or 50%. So if the industry goes down by, let's say, 50%, how much will your business go down?
It won't.
Well, that's confident. Why wouldn't it go down? If the industry goes down, if there's 50% less construction out there, Luke, what do you mean your business won't go down? You'd think it goes down by 50%. Why wouldn't it go down if there's 50% less construction going on? How does Dreamscape not get impacted by that?
Okay, they do.
Okay, right. Okay. Any other thoughts on it? So let's say that there's 10 million, dollars a month in construction business in your region. It goes down to 5 million a month. So does it have to go down in your business? Does your business have to drop with the marketplace?
Not necessarily.
Not necessarily. I mean, so I built, we architect engineered it, and he hit that last quarter. Not only was it the best quarter for the whole year, it was the best quarter he'd ever had in company history. When the marketplace is down by 50%, his business like doubled. How is this possible?
Not sure.
He worked smarter and harder. See, what happens is that's when you poach all your clients, all your customers, because everybody's used to their business going down if it's seasonal. See, this is why, and if any of you guys, are partners with Compass Accounting, I would have them listen to this podcast, because the best time to take business away if you're in the accounting business is when?
Probably
Summer
during tax
months.
season.
It's during tax season. Why? Because everybody else is, they're just doing business. They're not out trying to get new business. And do your clients really want you to go ahead and get more business? Kind of not, because then you might give them less service. So they don't really want to help your business to grow. It's weird. But subconsciously, this is what happens. If you're out getting new business because you're so successful during tax season, but to train somebody to think that differently, because they get into it. Most accountants, tax preparers are going to be amiable and analytic. And so that's when you do the opposite of what the industry is. So the industry, when there's seasonal things like in construction, so there's seasonal things that happen, and you say you're different than others, hopefully, and that's good. You think you're different, but are you really different? So what you do is you have a different mindset. You think differently and say, we're going to double when the industry goes down. There's still plenty of business out there. There's just less of it. You'd think that they would compete more. Sometimes that happens. Often it doesn't, especially if it's based on weather or seasons, or in the tax industry, the tax season. So the whole industry gets trained to be complacent and just accept things as they are. This goes back to when I was 26 years old and promoted into VP of sales, and I'm talking to the president and vice president. They're, I don't know, 15, 20 years older than I am. They have 10 times the experience in the industry. And I'm like, we're having this roller coaster, guys. We got to stop it. Oh, Mark, that's just how it is. I'm like, what? So that's when I discovered my first natural law in business, which is, the roller coaster principle. And there's two of them. So you guys remember that, I'm sure. And so what you can do is you can break it. Okay. Luke, what you got?
Yesterday I did 60%. Um, Seems like I have a lot of leads out there that I'm estimating, and they're I th think they're gonna close, but they're just working on them. Like one guy's waiting on financing, and this is here waiting on another contractor and waiting on insurance. Like, how do we, like, it's frustrating because I want to, yeah, let's close this lead
Okay.
so we
So
can
what you
start
do
on the
is
work.
what you do on that. Well, there's a difference between closing the lead and starting on the work. If you got to get permits, if you're waiting on something else or financing, you probably can't get started. I mean, you could in theory by extending them financing, but that's risky. What if the financing falls through? So you might go ahead and, like you and Kenny could go ahead and track all your objections in a spreadsheet, this and this and this, and then you come up with here's a strategy to overcome this, this, and this. If you go and say, well, let's get it booked, when are you anticipating? Are you guys familiar with the baton relay in sports?
No,
So you have 5 people on a team, let's say, and they have a baton, and one runs around the track, and then they hand the baton to the next person, and they run around the track, and the next person. The race is often not won by the fastest team; it's the team that does the best handoffs. So, do you wait until you're running? Until you have, do you wait to start running if you're the second person? Do you wait until you start running until you have the baton in your hand?
no,
Oh,
No. So what you have to do is you have to time how fast they're running, how fast you're running. You have to time that. If you drop the baton, almost guaranteed you're going to lose. So you can't do that. But you want it hit it in full stride. So you're running, you have a certain period of time to hand off. So you got to time it with the next person that's coming in, and you want to hit it in full stride. And so in business, that's what you want to do. It's flow. It's called flow. You want to be in flow between, well, let's get something scheduled. When do you think it is? So at least we get it on the books. You get them to sign on the dotted line. They're going to do it subject to financing or subject to this. So theoretically, and then if they can put a deposit down, well, let's get it scheduled. Now, what do you have to do as a company if you go to that type of thing? What do you have to have confidence in? Sales is, signing people up. What do you have to have confidence in?
the servicing.
The servicing. These two have to go ahead and be in flow. Now, there's some room, obviously. And so we have something tentative, like let's get it tentatively scheduled because, we have an opening here. It looks like it's going to be a weak job. Do you think you'll have the financing? Because we want to do it. So all we need is we just need you to agree on it and put a deposit on it. And that locks you in so we can schedule it. Does that make sense?
Mm-hmm.
There's more time that could be invested into that, but that's a start. Anything else, Luke, you got?
No.
Kenny, what you got?
Um, Two things. So the first thing is I'm more into servicing now, and then I have to. It seems like I have to prioritize what I get done after the servicing. Because I can't do everything that I used to do, which is fine because I dish some of that to Luke, and then the prioritization of that. I guess the process of that, determining what's important, what's most important.
Right? Are you in awe of one of your, I don't know if you call him a mentor or maybe a past mentor, I don't know. Are you in awe of how they're able to do that and married and 7 kids and all this stuff? Like, how do you balance everything in life? Like, how do you do it? So the way I learned how to do that is through a visualization exercise of the Apache helicopter principle. So the Apache helicopter it's a fighting warship. The thing, I read an article in the Wall Street Journal, I think, about this amazing machine, and it literally it has technology on it where it prioritizes up to 266, I think, different targets to know which one to take out, offensive and defensive. Now, a computer programmer is the one, some geek behind the scenes is the one that programs all of this to work. So it helps the pilot to go ahead and know all the different pieces and prioritize which one to shoot, which one's like a guy with a machine gun is not as dangerous as a guy with a shoulder launching missile. Now, if you're a computer programmer and you miss one line of code, what happens?
The pilot and everybody on board dies.
Right. People's lives are at risk. Like you don't maintain a truck, and what happens?
People's lives are at risk.
Yeah, but is somebody going to die if you don't maintain a truck?
Less likely.
Yeah, less likely than a helicopter, right?
Right.
And so there's higher risk. And so you practice on the little things. You don't wait until you go ahead and get in big things in life to look at and the importance of small details. One word in sales can get you the sale or lose you the sale. Listening in just the right tone can get you a sale or lose you a sale. Not following through with one thing, not prioritizing one thing. So what I do, Kenny, is I think about all the factors. What are the factors in the decision making, short term, long term? Short term, long term. Then I think about, people and relationships and about opportunities. And then I think about the morality of it. What's the right thing to do? Like all of those type of things. So it gets complicated as you get older and you have more things. It gets infinitely more complicated when you get married. It gets infinitely more complicated when you have children. It gets infinitely more complicated when you have grandchildren and then you have in-laws. I mean, life just gets more and more complicated. There's more and more complexity. And if you don't grow with that, then you become, it's a common name, so I'm sure I can use it. There's probably a lot of Stephen Millers out there, so it's not degrading. It's just if your brain doesn't grow with the complexities, that are out there, if your brain doesn't grow with that, then what happens is you get smacked down. You can't grow. You stop growing. You think you're growing, but you're not. You're the same person you were yesterday. So I would write it down, Kenny, and I would say, okay, here's the different factors. And this is what I learned with my finance degree is there's a weighting of factors. So if we all have 5 factors in the decision, you'd think we'd all come up with the same decision, but we'd all likely come up with different decisions, even though we're considering the 5 factors. And a lot of this is based on our personality. The amiable, their personality, the lowest frequency personality, is based on avoiding conflict, and they actually create a lot of conflict, even though they're trying to avoid it. And so their factor is making people happy. Nora just did a smoking hot job yesterday with a client, an Action Vision client. It was crazy. And this guy was taking advantage of the Action Vision client. She just stepped up, no. You're not going to do it. Like that dude doesn't have a wife. He needs to have a wife like Nora, to protect him because he's just getting taken advantage of. It's like, no, you can't do that. That's not fair to anybody. And she says, I'll come out there and create the bill. The guy wanted to cut the bill in half because he made a stupid decision. And she went ahead and made the observation, he can bill him the full amount, but the other guy, the customer, is Amish. And if he doesn't want to pay, just won't pay. Ooh, that's not a brand that gets out there in the English world. Because why? Because it probably doesn't happen. Well, it did to us once where we didn't have an Amish person pay. Um, and but it mostly happens Amish on Amish. Like in the mortgage industry, they talk about predatory lending, and it's big in the, where whites, are predators to the blacks, and, whites are predators to, Latino, and whites are, they're just white males, especially they're the bane of all human existence. Get rid of them. White male over 50, get rid of them, and every problem will be solved. But the truth is that nobody talks about the truth is there's far more predatory lending, black on black, Latino on Latino, woman on woman, young on young. And that's where that's where the trust white paper comes in. But nobody wants to know the truth, especially the abusers. Does that help, Kenny? Complicated, but at least hopefully it gives you some tools to kind of move forward on it.
Yeah, I think that makes sense.
Cool. Oh, I think, is it Nathan that's you guys are joining Dreamscape?
Yes.
Yes.
So you want to think into the future and say, what's going to happen in the future? The amiable doesn't like going into the future because of fear of conflict, not realizing, if you did something different today, you'd prevent something different. They don't even think like that. They think it's everybody else's fault because they're the nice person. The expressive doesn't think about the future because they've learned to go ahead and have it all blow up in their face. And, hey, it's kind of fun when it blows up in your face. Like there's a bunch of drama, bunch of trauma, bunch of stuff, and they love that. The analytic doesn't look in the future because they're terrified of the future because their past has not done so good. So what they do is they get stuck in the past. The driver tends to be the one that tends to be the best in looking into the future because they're not afraid of it. And they don't have to worry about people being happy, and they don't have to worry about being right, and they don't have to worry about, creating drama. There's more than enough out there that other people create. Just add to it if you want to. And so you guys need to be thinking, how are we going to go ahead and keep him, and what are we going to do? So you don't want to come up to me, Luke, like you've done in the past and say, hey, we're thinking about having him do this and this and pay him something. You want to have all of that thought out into the you want all of those situations thought out before they hit you. So anyone hire, you guys are vulnerable 2 years into your business. You're vulnerable. One right hire, wrong hire could make the difference whether Dreamscape survives or dies. And so you guys have got to be smart. You got to think about the future, what's happening, anticipate, plan. What if we don't have this? What if this doesn't happen? The amiable is delusional. They just think, yeah, everything's going to work out. Okay. Sometimes people don't get out of the car. The analytic wants to explain why it's not their fault. The expressive, again, they're just like, it'll all work out. It always has. But just because it always has doesn't mean it always will. So you guys need to be thinking about that. Nora, your success and you haven't seen it pay off financially yet, but that's not the point. How were you able to, as a double analytic, go in and rewrite the entire biggest challenge white paper, turning it into a workbook to go ahead and get potentially hundreds or thousands of people out there selling on your behalf? How were you able to do that?
I don't know. I just kind of went in with the mindset of like, what would I have wanted to know when I first started, or like what's important for somebody that's just starting, what's important for them to know, what's doesn't really matter right away. Like there's stuff that, you kind of learn deeper as you go, but just to keep it simple in the beginning, I don't know.
So I've been doing this for 34 years, and when I saw what she had done, I was like, it's magic. Like, and there was a discussion. She thought it ought to be one way. I thought it was the other. I have a lot of data to support that my way is a better way. And we have a conversation, an adult conversation. I'm like, huh, that's interesting. Well, let's try it your way. I can see why your way actually would work. The point isn't whether it works or not. The point is it's iterations to success. And so there's iterations. And Victor is the one that created the tipping point. I mean, there's a lot of other people that contributed to the success of this, but he's the tipping point. And it's just weird on how everything interconnects. And so, he's had he's had a hard life. And so he's, acknowledged he's in a halfway house. And so he's, had addiction issues and a whole bunch of issues. And we're talking to this, cute gal from Chicago area, and she's got this consulting practice. Yesterday, we're talking to her a second time, and she does pickleball on the side. And then all of a sudden, I bring up, yeah, they're doing pickleball in prison. Where did I get that? From the Wall Street Journal. So I take all of this data, from all these different sources. Kenny and Luke have this huge opportunity with a big company installing cabinets in Mexico. Well, there just was a top drug lord that was killed, and there's a war going on, but maybe it's going to be fine in April. It should be cleaned up ish, but there's all these different factors. Are people who are, people who say, I want the simple life and the easy life, do they really want it, or are they just lazy? I don't know. I don't know. There's no judgment. It's just observation. So what Nora's doing is she's allowing the leverage course to permeate, to penetrate her very DNA and how she's thinking. Like, how can I do this? So how can I get single moms, hundreds of them out there? So she's gone through 8 months and invested a lot into that. Other people aren't going to be willing or able to do that, but she is. She has. So they can gain benefit from her, and she can gain benefit from them. So, Nora, the 5 attitudes, why are those so important? What are they, and why are they so important?
The what are they is, let's see if I still remember, macho. I might have to pull that up. Is
No,
that what you're doing?
yeah, I'm doing that. You can just say why they're so important.
Well, for obviously pilots, you don't want somebody that's like got a macho attitude of like I'm invincible, I can do anything, because there's some amount of I feel like there's some amount of fear or respect that goes into it, that if you lose that, then you become dangerous to a lot of people.
So the 5 are anti-authority, macho, impulsivity, invulnerability, and resignation. Kenny and Luke had a team member, Levi. He texted me. I don't think I replied. I started to. He texted me and he had a picture of him flying, I think, a fighter pilot. And he said, I haven't crashed and burned. And I don't think I finished it. I need to do that. And I laughed. I said, congratulations. That's awesome. Sorry, I wasn't more clear in my communication. I wasn't expecting you to crash and burn on your first flight. What's fascinating is about pilots, they have this, but it's like a lot of pilots have all 5 of these. It actually attracts people who are anti-authority, who have macho, impulsivity, invulnerability, and resignation. It actually attracts the people. These same 5 things can be for law enforcement. It literally attracts people that are like this, which is
Maybe even create some.
Yeah, it's interesting. I can see what you're saying. I mean, I don't know that it creates them, but I think it feeds them. Yeah.
Hmm.
Yeah. Um, and so here's something that's really, really important. So when people first enter into my life, there's patterns, and they often, I mean, some will just won't like me just when I walk in the room, so that's fine. But there's some that actually revere me, like just think that, like if you ask them, what do you like most? It's your knowledge. You have this crazy amount of knowledge. You have so much knowledge, which I really don't. I mean, I don't know, I don't know, not compared to what's out there. I don't. I have very little. And so, it was cool that Kenny asked Elaine yesterday about where he thought, where she made the observation of, like, it's like you think that, I don't know, you're equal with Mark or something. And he is from a human perspective, from a knowledge and experience perspective, maybe not as much. Like, but he's going to know things I don't know. He's going to be able to do things I don't do. Like struggled with my grandkids. Like, why don't my grandkids listen to me at times? It's because Grandpa's always telling them you're going to fall and get hurt. Most of the time they don't. But do they not fall and get hurt because they listen to Grandpa? And when somebody listens to me and good things happen, I don't get any credit. But I don't care. I don't need the credit. The challenge is that people actually don't register that in their brains and they don't say he was right. So what they do is they become overconfident. It's the teenage principle. And so on the ratchet principle, if I was Kenny, I'd be bringing that up every single day. Why?
Make you think I care about it? Think it's important?
Why would you do that? That seems stupid.
Well, that's what you'll be trying to do next year.
Well, did you watch the no, this year. Did you watch the video?
Which one?
One about the agony of defeat?
I did. Wasn't sure. And just a bunch of people failing. I don't know what.
Ah, gotcha. Okay. I was a little confused there. That could never happen to you. Like, I get it. Oh, I get it. So what that was trying to do is you can't do the things I do, Kenny. A matter of fact, you're already doing them. It's actually wired into you from probably conception. And so it's fine. I don't care. But for the 9 Ds, the 9 Ds kick in. It's a reflex for you. So so what you'll tend to do as a man, especially raised Amish, you're not going to respect women. You just won't. You use them as human shields, women and children. It's like, dang, yep, nope, that's what it is. Like, it's just wired into you. You just don't respect them. They're like cattle or horses or something. And it just is. It's fine. It just is what it is. But it's important to recognize this is really who I am. And so it's good to have specific examples. But Kenny went to Elaine and asked her, but he didn't come back and ask me for specific. So this is a good example. And I knew that Kenny was going to do it because it's very predictable. It's not hard. He's going to go ahead and say, well, I'm going to do what you're doing. You've already done it. You're a master. You are one of my coaches. You're somebody that I'm learning from. I'm studying you like you just don't care. And it's fine. It's just fine. And so when there's dismissive, there's a combativeness, there's a competitiveness. And the thing is, and so why I don't succeed, why I choose not to succeed. And people do it all the time. Anybody else have anything else? A lot of stuff going on, a lot of cool stuff. It's amazing. You guys are doing awesome. Keep up the great work. This is like Jim Bontrager says, this is going to be a fun ride. really fun ride. Have an amazing day. We'll see you. Bye bye.